Springboks squad is out for their 4 games up in Europe, plus the South Africa A side is out as well. Coaches Erasmus, Nienaber and Stick have all been given their press conferences as to the selections. We'll go through the squad pretty quickly. Some of the ins and outs, plus the fixtures, and you guys can let us know your thoughts. I should say, if you love your Super Brew, there's a pool for the November games, which starts like today because the All Blacks are playing Japan. So if you like your Super Brew, there's a link down in the description. And if you're in the US and you like rugby, all the November games are on Flow Rugby. So link down in the description too. The Springboks draw, it's pretty tasty. The fact that you've got Ireland, France and England away, those are some pretty tough games. Like the All Blacks don't play either of France or Ireland. They had them both last year on their tour away, but goodness me, I mean, Italy as well there. We may see a little bit more experimentation from the Springboks coaching staff, but man, those are some pretty tasty games. There's not too much experimentation. Like the props, they're all pretty kind of steady as she goes. Hookers, it's interesting, they're bringing 3. And your man, Joseph Dweba, is not among them. So he seems to be the 4th choice guy at the moment. We have seen him have a few issues at line-out time. I saw him the Stormers the other day and also with South Africa. Not quite getting it. I feel like that's an area for him to just kind of tweak a little bit. So you've got your man Dion Fourie, who has essentially been listed as a utility. He's a loose forward who's going to cover hooker, I guess, in a pinch. He hasn't played much hooker in recent times. But he is the guy who was going to be behind Malcolm Marx and Bongi for that number 2 jersey. But it's interesting to see Joseph is in the South Africa A squad. So he's still in the thoughts of the South African coaching staff. But not quite enough for 3rd choice. Interestingly, Jason Jenkins is back. Remember, he's been playing his rugby, Japan, Munster, Leinster. Like he's been all over the shop. Since he left the Bulls a few years ago. Last played for the Springboks, I think it was only the one time, back in 2018. A big unit of a man. I've been thinking he should be in the Springbok squad at some point for a wee while, because remember he can also cover loose forward kind of in a pinch. But yeah, there's just been so many locks in South Africa. I mean, Eben and Lut have kind of had a lock on things. Plus, Peter Steeff's been jumping in. Franco Mostert's been popping in as well. Achia Snyman, when he's been fit, has been popping in. So the pecking order's just been too long. But it's pleasing to see him back. Murat and Ori are kind of your less experienced guys in the Springbok squad behind, obviously, Lut and Eben, who are still there. But yeah, congratulations to Jason for making his way back. It's been a long road back, man. That's a few years, but there you go. If you stick to your guns, you can make things back. And I guess with loose forwards, it's good to see Michael van Staden's there. He's been with the Boks in the past. They mentioned in the press conference, concussions kind of kept him out for a while, and the omission of Dwayne Vermeulen was notable enough that they brought it up in the press conference too. The answer basically being, that dude's got enough experience that he's not going to gain much from this tour. So they know what he can do. They'll call him up when they need him. The older guys have seen enough of them. So it's time to let somebody else have a crack. But I don't think by any means it's a snub on Dwayne. It's just they're kind of managing the minutes they've got left to allocate between now and the World Cup. Is kind of my reading of it. I mean, it'll be really pleasing to see a guy like Evan Roos get a bit more game time. Like I mentioned, Marco, when he's back fit playing, that's going to be good to see him. He's been playing really well, so good to see him back in green. Jasper Wiese has seemingly been the premier number 8 for South Africa. So, yeah, those minutes need to go into some of these guys. Mostert is also listed, like Fourie, as a utility, whereas Peter Steff, interestingly, listed as a loose forward. So, yeah, happy days. For the backs, there's not too much in terms of surprises, although fly half has been looking a little bit threadbare, I guess, with the likes of Andre Pollard being injured, Frans Steyn being injured, although they said they wouldn't have played him anyway because similar boat to Dwayne Vermeulen. They know what Frans can do, so they want to see some of the younger guys. And with Elton Yankees, they're going into rehab. They need to give someone else a crack at 10. So it looks like Damian Willemse is the main guy. And then Mani Libbok actually gets a call-up. I don't believe it. it's a weird one when Jacques Nienaber gets interviewed because he's not quite as cool as Rassie. I guess Rassie's got a lot more experience at fronting the old press conferences. Jacques gotten a lot better over the last 12 plus months, but whenever he's asked about Manie Libbok, I always feel like he gets a little bit flustered. But yeah, he's in the squad, so what else can you say? And they've also included this guy, Sasha Mngomenzulu, who they said is kind of covering 10-12, whereas Manie's covering 10-15, and then Damien's covering 10-12-15. So they're really kind of exploring their options. Sasha has only played a handful of games this season for the Stormers, but also remember, I think he's England eligible, so maybe it's one where you want to get him into the squad and kind of get your mitts on him before Eddie Jones has too much to say about it. Midfield is Deolinde, Esterhuizen and Creel. That's kind of par for the course. The Kanye Arms absence is going to be felt. Outside backs, good to see Nkosi back in. And utilities, Colby is listed as a utility. Remember, they've mentioned him stepping in at 9 and 10 before. Although, ideally, you want to see that guy on the wing. Kurtley Arons is also listed as a utility. And as I mentioned, Ngomenzulu as well being the kind of 10-12 cover. So, yeah, I don't think there's any kind of real huge calls there. A couple of uncapped guys, but mostly pretty steady. It's just going to be how these guys go at 10. I do hope Manie Libbok gets a go at 10 because I do think he has earned it. If you'd said that to me a couple of years ago, Manie Libbok's in contention for the Springboks 10 jersey, probably wouldn't have believed you, but I do think he's he's shown some pretty good development. Fixtures list, like I mentioned, pretty tasty. Ireland, France, Italy, and then I believe the England game is outside the test window, so we may see mostly South African-based guys for that final one, unless they can negotiate some kind of release with the club guys for the ones who are based abroad. Interestingly, that the Springboks guys have access to the Japan-based guys, whereas the Australians don't seem to. Like Marika Korombete is not available for the Wallabies at the moment, whereas a guy like Jesse Creel, he is, Vali LaRue is, so yeah, whatever they're doing in the background with those negotiations seem to be working. For the South Africa A squad, I think it looks pretty pleasing. Some of these guys have been in the Springboks before and have kind of fallen out of favour. I'm looking at a guy like Herschel Yankees. Johan Hussen hasn't quite had the game time, they reckon, but they want to give him a run. Cornell Hendricks' return to the fold is really pleasing. They've said, they're pretty pleased with how many positions that guy can cover. Henko van Feyck has been a bit of a revelation for the Lions this season, so it'll be really pleasing to see him get a go. As I mentioned, Dweba needs just a bit of game time, maybe with the spotlight off him for the South Africa A squad, so that's a good one. The propping stocks look pretty stocked. Butalezi's been playing the house down for a couple of seasons now for the Sharks. Likewise, Notcher. I mean, you guys are pretty blessed with depth at loose forward in South Africa. Fassi continues to be one that divides opinion with South African fans. The guy's kind of attacking brilliance lights up the field and people want to see him play, but also maybe a little bit frail on the defensive side of things. It's kept a guy like Koo and Bosch out of the Springboks fold for a wee while. So you feel like if Fassi is going to take that step up, he probably needs to show us what he can do, not just ball in hand. He needs to have that kind of complete game as to be expected. So obviously there's guys who feel omitted. I mean, Chris Smith has been doing really well for the Bulls for quite some time, but the fact that you've got Hussein in there, I guess kind of covers things as well. But yeah, we will see how things go with South Africa. What do you reckon, man? What's the order of the day for the South Africans to get a successful tour? It's a tough ask, man. Number 1 and 2 sides in the world in Ireland and France. France are Grand Slam champions from the Six Nations. You've got to beat Italy. And then how many more wins do they need to be successful? Are South African fans going to demand 4 from 4? That would be a heck of a tour. Is it 3 that's going to be a passing grade? I can't imagine South African fans saying 50% would be a passing record. But is that kind of realistic? I don't know, man. It's honestly a pretty nasty looking tour. But I'm very much looking forward to it because these are going to be some really, really big grandstanding games. You guys let us know what your thoughts are on the squad. How do you reckon these guys are going to go? And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.